Welcome back. It's time for Media Watch, or look at the top stories in the French press. James Creedon is with us for more. Hi, James.
Good evening, Lana.
And we start with Mohamed Merah's death, that suspected shooter here in Paris. The least we can say is that following a suspension of the political presidential campaign in France, everyone's very much back in the ring.
Absolutely. And if we take a look at the first tweet, Lana, this evening, this is criticism for François Hollande for expressing himself before Nicolas Sarkozy, after the siege ended. François Hollande made a very sort of solemn, formal announcement, almost in the guise of president himself. And some people were saying, hold on a minute, you aren't the president. It's surely, it's up to the president to speak first, and then you can speak afterwards.
Surely that wasn't by mistake.
No, it definitely wasn't. He was back in the robes, I suppose, of the guy who wants Sarkozy's job, right? And Nicolas Sarkozy, if we take a look at his official Facebook page, he made an announcement very quickly this afternoon saying, as you know, the campaign was suspended because of the incidents in Montauban and Toulouse, so that I could fully be in the role of president and head of the army. So, I suppose very much driving home the point that he had another role in the last few days, which, it must be said, for the campaign doesn't do him any real harm, especially as security is one of his stronger suits.
So, Nicolas Sarkozy and François Hollande very much back on the campaign trail, and you've also picked up on some rows between their supporters online.
That's right, because each of them is trying to kind of stay on the high moral ground, so to speak, but they have their supporters sniping away in the background, one of whom is the security spokesman for the Socialist Party, Jean-Jacques Urvoas. Now, he said online, hold on a minute, this is before the siege ended. How can this have gone on for 30 hours just to go in and get one person out of an apartment building? Now, he was
really criticising the operation there.
Exactly, and perhaps even insinuating that it could have been wrapped up sooner, and that maybe the media domination of the story was serving UMP.
That maybe it was dragged on purpose?
Right.
Is that the insinuation?
It's one possible insinuation, and he was very quickly criticised for that by UMP MPs, calling his statement shameful, undignified and grotesque. So obviously they were reading into it the worst case scenario in terms of what it could mean. Now, elsewhere, but you do actually have defence experts pointing out the fact that, this was a relatively simple operation in terms of SWAT team operations. He wasn't on a boat. He wasn't in some complicated warehouse. It was an apartment, only one guy, no hostages.
And yet it was so spectacular.
Absolutely, especially the way it ended. I mean, it was really like a Hollywood movie, I guess. Now, just very quickly, some other examples. This is another Socialist Party MP saying that Claude Guéant should resign because the Secret Service had already...
Minister.
Right, and he gives 3 reasons, saying the Secret Service had located this guy before, between the first and the last killing, some 8 days. Basically, Interior Minister, take your responsibilities. This was not a job well
There
done.
was a failure somewhere, and some heads need to roll.
Now, rather predictably, Guillaume Pelletier, another UMP party MP, said, look, these sort of comments by Gedge, who made that on his blog just there, and the comment by Urvoas, these are lowering the tone and it's indecent. So clearly, the war of words continuing online.
And Nicolas Sarkozy also made an interesting proposal today to fight extremism online.
That's right, and unsurprisingly, websites such as Télérama, which deals with the TV and media issues on occasion, they say, "Is this censorship in disguise?"
They've really latched onto that.
They really have, and they actually asked that question: was it censorship in disguise? And take a look at this, Lana. I thought this was pretty much making a very clear statement. Be careful not to click here, they say.
With the link.
They give the link, and here you have jihad forums, etc. So, as you were saying earlier, what about researchers? What about people?
Absolutely.
Who
My
have a
first
need?
thought was, what about people who are terrorism experts, who research these forums, who go on there to read? What about intelligence services who need to get online and look at that? What about students writing papers?
Well, certainly it's created an awful lot of debate. And just to take a look at some of the headlines on it, you have on the L'Express website asking, is it actually possible? Now, one of the points that they make in L'Express is that measures taken against child pornography websites could be extended to deal with terrorism, but actually the penal code in France would have to be adapted at the moment because of freedom of expression laws. Also, Le Monde, in their technology pages, are pointing out something similar. They're saying actually that European law for freedom of expression could actually not allow for something like this.
Absolutely, the European Court of Human Rights could latch onto that case.
Absolutely.
Actually.
So they're saying really this is very restrictive, and so they're pointing that out. Worth looking at this poll on the right-leaning website Le Figaro. Is it okay to punish access to internet users who go onto terrorist websites. Right-leaning website and maybe a right-leaning answer, 75% of people think yes. But certainly in the current climate, maybe that's not surprising.
There really is a debate there over the freedom of expression.
Absolutely.
issue.
And even on Twitter, people saying, how can you criticize measures to fight against terrorism? And another tweet here saying, hold on a minute, be careful, France, because these security-type laws that happened in the US after 9/11 could come into France now.
With that hashtag, nous y sommes, there we are. We're there too.
We're already in that situation, I guess, yeah.
We just have time for one quick last story. A Facebook page paying tribute to that shooter, Mohamed Merah.
That's right. Now, this went up this afternoon. It's worth pointing out that very few people actually liked this page, paying tribute to him in his death. And a lot of the comments on it, I noticed, it's difficult to see here because this is a screenshot, actually criticising the very existence of this page. The Interior Ministry shut it down very quickly.
James Creedon, thanks for being with
Thanks,
us.
Emma.
That was Media Watch France on France 24. And now it's time for our daily look at what's been buzzing online. And you're about to find out a whole lot more about Albert Einstein. His archives are being uploaded by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, a trove of 80,000 documents to get to know the man behind the science. But first, after these shootings in Toulouse and that raid, here's a closer look at Al-Qaeda's lone wolves. It's on Web News.